And welcome to the May event of First Friday. And just so again, in terms of introduction, so my name is Julie Waits. I'm a partner with the franchise company, and we hold these events generally every month, subject to anything that's going on in the world that might fall on the Friday. And today, our host that we are very happy to have with us is Chris Cook, and also his colleagues from the Chantry Group. And Chris is going to share with us his views, experience, top tips in terms of how to recruit more amazing franchisees, with obviously the emphasis being on amazing, because everyone wants good quality, amazing franchisees, and that's what Chantry hope to help with. So I shall pass over to you, Chris, in terms of to take the floor, and if you want to start to screen share, and in your capable hands.
Thank you very much, Julie, and thank you for inviting us to come on this First Friday event. I'm Chris. There's two of my colleagues here, Ian and Rob. I've been running Chantry since 2007. We've specialised in franchise recruitment since then, so it's been quite a long time, and things have changed quite a bit over that journey. We're definitely not here to sell anything at all. We literally want to share what we do, who we've done it with, what's worked, and hopefully some nuggets will come from that. So Rob and Ian, if you're happy to do your quick intros.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Rob. I know quite a lot of the faces on the call, which is lovely to see your faces again, and some new ones. So big hello. I've been in franchising for about 8 or 9 years now at Chantry Group, coming up to 3. Prior to that, worked at Franchise Finance, which became Hitachi Capital Franchise Finance, and now is Novuna. So worked with a lot of different franchise brands in my time. Now support Chris and the team as Senior Account and Business Development Manager. So working from an operational perspective, helping franchisors to recruit more amazing franchisees, and also working on the new business side as well.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see so many familiar faces in the room. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Ian Bradley. I've been in the franchise industry for coming up to 30 years now, having started my own franchise business back in the early 90s called Hospital Entertainment, which provided TV and telephone rental to hospital patients throughout the UK and in Europe, which are franchised. I've been a director of the BFA. I was their chairman in the Southwest for a couple of years, and I have worked with multiple brands as a franchisor up until about 7 months ago, when I joined Chantry Group as their senior commercial manager, and having appointed Chantry for a new startup franchise, which I was managing and worked with them for the last 5 years. When it was time to move on, I just knew who I wanted to go and join. So that's my background.
Thank you, Ian. Rob, I think you were going to do the next bit, weren't you? I can make it work.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, just a very quick overview of the business, so everyone's on the same page as to exactly who we are. So Chris founded the business back in 2007 with the sole focus and objective of helping franchisors and franchisees to grow and to build more valuable businesses. And we do that across 3 key areas. That's marketing, recruitment of franchisees, and also in our retail division, where we support franchise brands with detailed valuations and with finding a buyer. So as a team, we're the largest sort of specialist franchise growth agency with combined over 150 years franchise and marketing knowledge, and are very pleased to have a proven track record with numerous franchise brands growing in line with their operational targets and priorities. That might be recruiting perhaps first few franchisees, or it might be a more established brand looking at perhaps more resales as their objective. Adept at leveraging sort of innovations and trends, and sort of staying on trend with what's going on in the wider marketplace, and trying to bring successful new channels to the fore. And as a management team, we have actually got a few QFPs. Chris, in fact, trains for the BFA, delivering that marketing and recruitment module. And we work with brands in different ways. Sometimes it's more as a sort of filling gap, but perhaps there might be a skills gap. On other occasions, more as sort of a full extension, acting as the brand's marketing and recruitment team. So quick interview to us, introduction to us. There's some of the team there all happy and smiley at our Christmas get together, I think last year, up to about 17 or 18 team members now, dotted all over the UK. So that's us.
So we've been fiddling around with the order of how to do this, but we thought we'd start off with some brands that we've worked with, some of them for many, many years now, and talk a little bit around credibility, so that you guys, hopefully, when we're going through why we do and suggest what we suggest, you go, okay, then hopefully listen up and take some of it on board and roll some of it out for yourselves. So there's a few brands on here that we've worked with where our processes and systems have worked really well. One of the key things that we're going to cover today is, I don't want to set this all up, but we've got some silver bullet that we're going to go, you've just got to do this, guys, and you'll get amazing franchisees. It's not like that. It is hard work. And where we've worked with these brands, we've worked very closely with them. They've invested a lot of money. They've got, on the whole, very, very good results. There's been ups and downs over the journey. And it's very much a team effort. So it's not like we just come in and fix it. It is everybody working together. There's a lot of budget being spent, but it's all been measured and controlled, and there's a journey. And some of those journeys are really cool to report back on. And I'm very proud to be able to sit here and be able to deliver some of the stories for these guys. So we'll use some examples here, but Revive, as many of you will probably be aware, won the BFA Franchisor of the Year at the last conference, which was the big award. We've obviously got people like Taxist and Right at Home, which are very highly regarded, smaller, emerging, like the massage company, which are trying to create a new sector in the country, which is a very exciting one that we're working on, quite a high investment. Massive global expense reduction analysts. We work with them across multiple countries, helping them to move forwards. Dynarod, part of British Gas, Centrica, big brand. Laser clinics, we help them come into the UK marketplace. How many have they got now, Rob? It's about 49, 50?
49, yeah.
49. Really proud to work with them and have helped them move along that journey for the last few years. And there's a small logo in the middle there, which I have left till last, which is Shell, which we're very proud to have been working with, and have just signed a 1+1 2-year contract to work with them with their franchise recruitment marketing for the next couple of years, which is a real big deal for us as Little Chantry. So the stuff we're doing here, it does work. As I said, there's no silver bullet, but we're going to go through in a little bit more detail our approach, why we do it and how we do it, which if you can grab some nuggets from it, that would be a big win for us today. It's to try and impart some of that, some of those little bits and bobs that we do, which we've done with these guys, which helps. So first of all, what's an amazing franchisee is the question. You can go out there and you can generate leads, and you can obviously bring franchisees on board. And to us, that's one way of looking at franchise recruitment, which is just to get the money in and obviously hit those targets and focus on it from a numbers perspective. But our approach has always been to look at it from a slightly different angle, and this might be something that you haven't considered before. So this could be a little bit different. So we have got this approach where we want to consider a franchisee or your network of franchisees, and if you imagine putting a mobile phone battery bar above them as to whether they're the good, the bad, or the ugly, and I suppose in terms of measurement of whether they're the good, the bad, and the ugly, at the end of the day, it's down to valuation. It's a business. It's a business. You are a business yourself as a franchisor, and the franchisees are running businesses. And in theory, you should be focusing on helping them be profitable and successful. The brands that I was just referring to earlier, they are building successful franchisees businesses. That's what it's about, and that creates that longevity and builds the valuation of the franchisor's brand. So where we wanted to try and start you focusing rather than on the tactics, which is what everyone always starts thinking about, right? Where should we be using LinkedIn or whatever? This is not about that. This is about starting off thinking, how much money do I need to invest in this, and where am I going with my franchise network, as a franchisor, and what does that look like in the future? Because if you can get that bit in your mind correct, we believe you come at it from a different angle. And then suddenly everything that we're talking about in terms of the steps makes more sense and has more value. So we like to think of this as a process where you look at what you're currently worth, look at what the franchisees' businesses are worth, look at the good ones and the ones that need a bit of help and the ones that you should be exiting, and moving on to maybe getting a new franchisee in who has got the green battery bar. And if you then build your network, you define what perfection looks like for the future, and you can map that out, and you can actually think, okay, if I can improve the guys that are at the orange battery bar status through helping them with their marketing and growing their businesses, making them more profitable, build their valuation, build them up, they would then become green battery bars. And if you can then recruit people who fit the profile and the background and the mindset of the guys that you've currently got who have got the green battery bars, you're going to build a network that has a far superior valuation. And then when you start looking at the numbers, it all gets very, very exciting, because over a period of 5, 8, 10 years, you can do some quite cool stuff. So I wanted to use examples here. So hopefully no one will mind me talking about Revive, the Franchisor of the Year, BFA Franchisor of the Year. We started working with them quite a few years ago now, and they were at that point in time, I hope this is all fine to talk about. I think it's relatively open knowledge from their award win recently, but they were very much a man and van style business with a few people who'd grown successfully and built multi-van management operations. And their focus when we started working with them was to change the messaging, change the marketing, so they attracted people and gave them the right expectations and brought them in as management franchisees. Now they'd started doing that and they'd started proving the model a little bit for that area, but I'd probably say at that point in time 15 to 20% of the network was sort of at that high achiever end. And I'm very pleased to have recently attended their conference, and I believe this percentage now is sort of the 80%. I don't know the exact figures, are in that place, and they're bringing people in. If you have a look at their messaging, there's still some work we can do on that. But if you have a look at their messaging, it's bringing people through who are a totally different caliber of franchisees. So they're coming in and they're starting with multiple employees, multiple vehicles, 2 or 3 employees, a couple of vans, and they're hitting huge targets very quickly because they're coming at a different angle. And that's all been a journey. So it started off with, let's test the messaging, let's grow this different pool, this different database of prospects, and then over time, by working with those prospects, the franchisor has made these people successful as they come through, and enabled the case studies and the stories to then bring more people through. So you end up with the cycle. So it's not just about recruitment, it's about the whole franchise working really, really well, so that when people look at it, they do their due diligence, that they get the results. Anyway, going back to this, what they did was they said, this is where we are now, this is where we want to be, these are the people we need to attract, this is the value of the businesses that they've got now, this is the value they could have, which is what they've been doing, is growing the value of the existing franchisees businesses, and their valuation of their network has significantly increased. So they have a different way of approaching it, maybe not what everyone was expecting from the first few slides. Gentlemen, Rob, Ian, do you want to add anything to any of that?
I think summarised it really well.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Very awesome. So into a little bit more of a tactical area. So we've sort of broken this down, and over the years refined it into a process. It's in here we've made it into a 10-step process, and each of these little elements of the process are very, very important. So the first part is the target audiences, and we were just talking about the people with the green battery bars, the franchisees, those amazing franchisees you've got now. One thing you need to consider when you're looking at those franchisees and where they've come from, what their attitude is, what their approach to being part of the network is, you need to consider also that they've probably been in that place, in that journey for a period of time. So a lot of franchisors will focus on presenting franchisees that are good franchisees, but they may have been in the business for 10 to 15 years to get to that stage, and they'll use those people and their background now rather than thinking about what they were like when they came on board. And if you look at some of the metrics and stats that have come out of the BFA Work Buzz survey, and they're just doing a new one now, but there was one that was done and released in 22. I think the results were collected in 2020, end of 2021. You'll find in there the average age of the prospect is a lot lower than you probably think it was and is going to be. So the people looking at franchise opportunities, typically, it depends who you want, are potentially a little bit younger and need to see and be familiar with franchisees that are in your network that maybe are a little bit younger. So when you're doing your target audience work, consider what those people were when they came on board to join your franchise, maybe not where they are right now, 10, 15, whatever years in, 8 years in, whatever it is, into their journey. We use a tool called empathy mapping. I think some of the people on this call today have also been through this process. And it's really good at getting into the real nitty-gritty, the detail of who those people are. So we don't really care if they were a doctor or if they came from a certain industry background. That's not what it's about. It's about how they operate as a person, how they think, how they consume materials, who they listen to, what they're looking to achieve, what they're looking to avoid. So it goes around a whole mix of areas to really drill into those individuals. And it's a very good exercise to look at who you really want and who you really don't want to attract. Gents, do you want to add anything to any of that section before I carry on to competition?
Yeah, just if you want to have a look at what an empathy map is, it's quite commonly used as a tool. So just Google images, it breaks down what those different categories are. But as Chris says, a really, really great way of getting into the sort of psyche of an individual and going a little bit deeper. So a really, really useful tool that's readily available.
And I think what it does also, it adds further content into your own minds as to the type of demographic or franchisee that you want. Rather than just receiving an application and processing that, you actually want to deal with the people that you want to deal with, and rather than a big sales funnel at the top, you want to make sure that there's quality coming in and not quantity, and see that through with your processes. Excuse me, with your processes. An old boss of mine used to call it bottom sniffing, to get to know each other and make sure that those processes are aligned, so you're giving the information to the franchisee that they want, as well as receiving it.
So moving on to the competition, you've got to, in our opinion, consider who the competition is to your franchise opportunity from a different angle. So don't look at it as, okay, so I do, I don't know, cleaning, for example, as a franchise. So don't just look at other cleaning businesses, look at other franchises that are of a similar investment level or have a similar, so it might not even be, so Revive as an auto spray paint repair brand previously, before we started working with them, most of their competitors were looking at other car spray paint repair, smart repair brands. But what when we did the exercises and we identified who they wanted to come into the network next, it was people that were coming in and being managers of a business. There's a different skill set and a different type of audience. So they ended up getting inquiries from people who were also considering other brands in home care and I can't remember the other areas now, but there was basically a mix that was nothing to do with other smart repair brands. It was moving it to a different place. So your competition isn't necessarily the competition you straight away would think about for the franchise opportunity. And that bit of the exercise is relatively simple. So you just get a list together. What you then need to do is really look at what differentiates you. This is one of the biggest bits for us, is differentiates you from those competitors, so that when that prospect who may be looking at home care and looking at other ideas and opportunities comes to look at your messaging, they actually see something that stands out to them and is different to what those other brands are offering. This is the bit that I put the most value on, and you need to spend some proper time and have possibly your senior leadership team and maybe others around you to help you try and get into the detail of this. Don't just say it's a franchise, we provide a proven business model. Don't just say we give you loads of training, the best training in the country, because you might think that, but everybody else is probably going to be saying something similar, and it doesn't actually stand out when someone's actually looking in detail. And the good people are going to look in detail at your business opportunity and really do a lot of due diligence and research prior to actually getting in touch with you. So those differentiators need to be genuinely things that are different. Multi-award winning, loads of people are multi-award winning, doesn't really stand out these days. So you need to really dig into what those things could be. The key messages summary comes off the back of doing those exercises, and that leads you into doing the headline messaging development. And I've put in brackets there, visuals. The key messages are what that audience needs to hear, and the way you present them, they need to stand out. So I would suggest you look at, when you're putting this the document, if you want to call it a document, the headline messaging together, is that you start off with these key bullet points and then you build the content underneath them. So you end up with almost like a series, maybe 6 of the actual differentiators explained within your document, but you have headlines that jump out. You then need to try and put visuals to these, because words are great. We spend a lot of time fiddling about with words, but visuals, images and video, etc., they tell so much more of a story. One of the areas that we've spent a lot of time the last few years working with brands on is to try and get the message right in the visuals. So it's quite common for people to put up a picture of a franchisee, maybe stood with a vehicle or a building or whatever it is behind them, but maybe not actually consider what that says to someone who has no idea what their brand is about. And we wanted to put some examples up, and weren't really sure which ones to use because we've done this quite a few times with quite a few different brands, but we decided to do it with Dyno Rod because most people have seen the orange vans driving around, so it's quite a good one. You think of a Dyno Rod, probably think of a Dyno Rod brand as a drain cleaning. It's a group of drain cleaning operatives. So in this particular situation, we've gone in there and gone, well, what is the actual business? What does it look like? What does a franchisee do? What's their role? And that's another thing that I would suggest you strongly bring through into the messaging, is to really set out what the role is. And visuals are quite nice, a nice way of doing it, but you can also obviously use a journey piece or a set of bullet points or some icons, anything that really just talks about their role and gives clarity. So in this particular example here, we've obviously looked at Dyno Rod and said, you know, the franchisee doesn't clean drains, they don't drive the van, they don't even manage their team directly. They've got managers that do that, a team in their office. They've got an office once they're established, obviously. We wanted to try and paint a picture of the scale of what this business would look like as a template. So when they first when a prospect is first looking, they start to understand. We wanted it to be welcoming to all sorts of different people in different parts of the country, because obviously in different areas of the country, there's different demographic mixes. So it's really important that the photography is welcoming to all sorts of different people in different backgrounds. This particular shoot, hopefully the bottom right or the top left, you can see 2 different types of franchisee. We've got a couple and a single franchisee, single male franchisee, which is more typical of what they've actually got at the moment, a bit younger actually. And we've gone and tried to get the age right, we've tried to get the mix right, and we've also tried to say, look, you have a group of technicians, you have a team of admins, you have all of these vehicles, which in this case was 5 or 6 vehicles. It was hard to fit them in. These pictures chosen were different ones to some of them. But it does give you a feel for what their role is in the business, how they're overseeing their team, and then hopefully also the support. Obviously, these would never be shown in this way. They'd be part of a story within the messaging piece, within the brochures, within the website, and all those different areas. Anything, guys, you want to add? Because I'm sort of carrying on now without stopping.
Yeah, I would just say one thing to be mindful of using too much is stock imagery. There was one client in particular that we worked with, who were going through this breakthrough sort of process, doing some in-depth research, and noticed that there was a picture that they'd used, consulting brand, that was exactly the same as a picture used by their biggest competitor. So it didn't tell a great story. So as authentic as you can possibly be in the photos that you're using, rather than utilizing stock imagery, it makes a real difference. So be mindful of that, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, a picture tells 1,000 words, as we all know. And if you're drawn onto a website or a prospectus, you're buying into that imagery, and you sort of say to yourself, is that me? Can I do that? Can I lead a team? Can I be a franchisee with those particular skills which are necessary? And that imagery is just really important to draw out those people and perhaps to put off other people that believe that they couldn't do that.
And more regularly now, we're actually starting to use, we're talking about authenticity, but we're actually starting to use actors for the franchisees to try and make sure that the images have a good life cycle. And then we use the franchisees themselves in case study material throughout the actual messaging. So you've got something that's got a bit of longevity. Some of the people within the pictures are sometimes people who work for the franchisee, who we've done the filming or photography at. But it does give a bit of life to the pictures and allows you to control things a little bit more. So that's another area. And happy, as I said, this is not a sales pitch at all. So if anyone wants to just ask about how we do it, and we can give you tools that we've used to cast actors, all sorts of things, we're very happy to share and to help. If I won't do that now because we haven't got very much more time, but
I think one good example, Chris, is sort of the age of franchisees. When you've got a network who are 10, 15 years in, then, if you're wanting to attract a younger generation as to when they started, what their age was, then you don't want images of, people in their 50s, as it were.
And the demographic spread as well. If you're trying to welcome and balance up your network, and you've got, for example, a lot of people from a certain background, I don't know, without wanting to cause any, in fact, I won't even go there because I'll just say the wrong thing and it's on recording as well. But anyway, you get where I'm going. Alignment, number 6, moving on quite quickly. So alignment is getting all of those different channels that you're using saying the same message, or at least having some sort of consistency with this new message, and doing some sort of audit and seeing what's out there. It's amazing when you do an audit. If you don't, everybody takes one thing from today, do an audit as if you're a franchise prospect of what you can find and see out on the internet about you, because you'll find all sorts of rubbish out there which people have borrowed, changed, historically has not been updated, wrong prices. It's very rare we come across a brand and it's been managed and controlled really well. So I would say make sure that you get the alignment piece correct. The message needs to be consistent. You need to consider the channels that you're using as well, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But the alignment piece is really important. It's more about time than spending money on that bit. Most of this stuff so far is time rather than money. It's about allocating the time to get it right. The next bit, which actually does involve money, is the marketing activity plan. So it's a big fancy name for something that's basically a list of all the activities you're proposing to do over a period of time, with all the prices and what you expect to get back from them. Can be just a spreadsheet. The budget for that is really important, that you allocate enough money to get results. You've got to make sure that you put the right money in. The BFA and the WorkBuzz survey gives you some ideas of what the averages are that the industry is. We haven't got time to bring up today, but what the industry have reported as what they spend in terms of the costs of actual promotion. But you've got to be very careful how you read it, because promotion is about what you're spending on actual advertising, generating the leads, not on creating the content necessarily, not on the people that are running the processes for you. If you've got someone in-house, that budget is not part of that number. So when you actually start adding this up, it can get quite expensive. The people that have done it well and have got good results have spent the money, and they've really gone and attacked it properly, which is why, as I said at the beginning, if you look at it in terms of evaluation of a business and then where you're moving to as a new valuation, and the journey and how you're going to get there is all mapped out, it's not quite as scary, and you're probably more confident to invest the amounts of money that need to be invested to do this properly. If anything, from all of this, we're talking about doing all of these things properly. If you do them properly, you get good results. If you don't do them properly, you might get some good results, but you're going to be lucky getting good results, and it won't be consistent and it moves around. So you do need to spend proper money. You do need to do it all these steps in our experience, having tried it with different people, trying to save money here, trying to do it different ways. This is the way that works, and it's long-winded, it takes time, and it's possibly frustrating, but you get results from it. It's the way that that's what we're supposed to be here to do today. We want to recruit amazing franchisees, so we wanted to make sure that message came through. From an implementation perspective, once you've got your marketing activity plan mapped out, the actual implementation of that plan is really, really important. Don't just think that's done and tick. It's a journey, and you need people who are actually looking at this, whether they're in your business or they're external, doesn't matter, but you need people who are managing this process, got their eyes on it. You need a consistent story. You need to have authenticity coming through in a regular messaging piece that can be then seen by those people who are doing the due diligence, and they can actually read and visualize and see themselves in the role of a franchisee. Social media is important, having that regular, consistent flow, and that sort of moves us into the test, listen, test, whichever way around you want to do it. We like to try and test all these messages continuously. We like to keep all the channels on their toes. Whether the people who are running those channels like what we do or not, I don't know. I don't think they do, but we keep them under huge pressure. We keep ourselves under pressure. If you were working with us, we were on a monthly rolling contract. So we don't try and tie people up. We don't, and I think that's really, really important, is you don't tie yourselves into stuff. You keep everybody under pressure. They should be under pressure. It's marketing, it changes all the time. So when you have got the people in the right places and they're all doing what they're supposed to be doing, they should be talking to each other and saying, the leads are saying this, the people coming through the inquiries are saying this about what they think the business opportunity is. That needs to be reviewed, in my opinion, on an 8-weekly or quarterly basis in detail. The audit needs to, look around the internet, see what's out there, see what people can find, see what's crept out that isn't in the right places. But if you do look at that every quarter, every 8 weeks, and you do talk to your lead handler, and you put the lead handler and the marketers together, and you put everyone in the same room, you will find that you can then start to adjust and test and make your the return on investment you get from the activities that you're doing far, far better and far stronger. So this test listen piece is as important as all the other bits, because that gives you that continuous process, that continuous flow. The next bit on there, which you'll be pleased to hear, is towards the end of this slide, is the succeed and repeat. Now, the guys that we were just talking about, who we've worked with for a long time, they have done this process and gone through it and then repeated it. So they'll do it for, say a year or 18 months, and then they'll repeat the whole process. They'll start again, they'll look at their target audiences. They go through the whole journey. So we've done 4 or 5 of these journeys with Taxis, with Revive, and that's why they keep going, they keep moving on, they keep evolving their message, they keep changing who they're targeting, they keep it fresh, the story continues to evolve. We have regular calls with certain clients, I'm talking about every 2 or 3 weeks, to help with their message, to help it evolve. So their team do it, we just guide and keep moving. So it's a continuous process. I appreciate time is ticking. Gents, anything you'd like to add to that?
Not from me.
Not for me, thanks, Chris. I think you've covered that. So thank you.
One thing that maybe you guys were all thinking we were going to do was give you a whole list of channels that we think are really good, but that totally depends on which audience you're targeting as to which channels work. The channels, the channels are no secret. It's the messaging bit that we believe is the secret, and getting that message to evolve and the story to work. And that isn't cheap, and it's not simple, and it involves effort. I think, considering we started we're supposed to do half an hour, we were told to do half an hour, we've done half an hour, I could continue, but I think it's a good time potentially to move on to the Q&A section. If Julie, I don't know what happens at this point in the deck, in the webinar, but Julie,
no, Chris, that's great. So but you've got some more time, so don't worry about it. There's another slide there you want to talk through. You've got another 5 minutes actually to talk. Did you miss a slide out there, Chris?
Well, I think it will. I would rather do a more live Q&A so that people can we can answer questions. We can do, but I think more will come from the discussion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Listening to us waffling on is one thing, but everyone can share their thoughts, and maybe even if people want to ask questions about what they've heard or their experiences, good or bad, we're very happy to try and
help. Well, actually, I'll kick off, Chris, because I've got a question that kind of came to mind, or I suppose it came to mind while you were while you were giving your presentation, which was absolutely great and very thought-provoking. So, as you know, we do the development work, so we take new franchisors through the whole kind of system and cycle and help them in all areas. And at that time, hopefully they're all very keen and they're all very enthusiastic and they all want to know, you know, what they can be doing while we're doing the development work. And the answer is really, we never know, because we never know what the profile is going to look like, what the capex is going to be. So basically, the thing that I generally always say is spend time on obviously looking at systems, improving systems, looking at what you do currently from a marketing point of view, but harvesting and increasing as many brand followers as you can do, because if someone follows your brand for whatever reason, they may also then potentially be interested in becoming a franchisee. So I guess it was just some thought in terms of feedback on that as to what your experience is currently in terms of your clients harvesting their brand followers to become franchisees potentially.
The first franchisees that a franchisor gets aren't necessarily going to do the journey. They're a different type of person. They're coming in, they're more entrepreneurial. You've got to start somewhere, and the franchisors usually spent a lot of money to get to that point where they're launching. So there sometimes is a rather a keenness, shall we say, to bring people in who are not right to start to get some money through. And there's a sort of a psychological thing where that person is feeling quite nice because someone actually wants to invest and buy and be part of their brand. It feels nice to them, but you still got to be strict. So someone like Julie or Ken or one of the other guys, having them actually guiding and helping with that bit of the process, I think is really valuable, because you can have people come in who are really not going to succeed and not the right people to be franchisees for the long term. We view all our relationships as being a long-term relationship with our client, and if something's going to be a short-term gain and a long-term pain, we would rather stop that from happening. So if your mate knows someone who could be a good franchisee, that might not be, and in our experience typically isn't the best way of getting going. It's better to have all of this stuff in place to a level. You don't have to do quite the stuff that Tax System Revive are doing, but you need a basic level and a basic wardrobe, a suite of material that allows you to attract the right sorts of prospects. But you need the discipline as well to say no to the people that you're really not sure about. And I think that's the bit that it's good to have brand presence. I agree, but it's that discipline to make sure you always focus on what's it going to be like in 5 years' time or 10 years' time if I put all these people in the franchise? Are they the right people?
Yeah, so the recruitment process still needs to be there, but hopefully if they've got a level of brand awareness, then there's an entry point there. But thank you for that. I see Mark, you've raised your hand if you'd like to lead on. Mark Scott.
Hi, Judy. Yeah, I did actually put it back down again, though.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Chris answered the question during that bit there.
Okay, thank you. Simon?
Thank you. So I've just got the alarm going off the back. I'll ask this one quickly. Chris, thank you very much, by the way. That was awesome. It was really good. And I got a lot of time for Chantry because your reputation is excellent. And some of the pointers you've highlighted are really, really brilliant. I mean, I've got loads of questions, but I mean, I'm not going to hold all the time. But, you know, what needs to be in place? A franchisor comes to you and wants you to work with them. But what needs to be in place? I mean, presumably you'll be looking for, you know, definition of the brand, good unit level economics from the franchisees, good franchisee validation. Is that a given, or are you saying that that's something you can work with? Because your strength it's coming across is all about the messaging, isn't it? And the targeting and identifying the right people. So there has to be certain things that your clients need to have in place before they can benefit from Chantry.
Very much so. We have to work together. This isn't like come in and wave a wand and it all works. This is, if there's a good franchise and a good business model, obviously you can sell that, you can present that to the market and people will want to come in and potentially invest and buy it. And then you need to make sure you only get the right people in. So I don't know who's on the call, and there's a lot of people on the call, but Right at Home, if there is someone on the call, I'm not sure, but they've got a very strict, they only recruit 6 or 7 a year. And if people come in who aren't the right people, they will say, no, you know, we only recruit these people It's only these people that are going to succeed, in our opinion, and they have to click and connect with the rest of the network. And it can be quite hard, I think, when things are going really well. And I've seen this before with clients where it really clicks and they're getting lots of inquiries through, and they need to slow down. They need to calm down. And sometimes we paused for a period, even a year, and let them get themselves sorted out before we carry on, because it's the right thing to do, because they need to make sure the network's strong, because it's not about this year, it's about 5 years' time. And if they get it wrong now and they get too excited and they get a backlog and people start failing, it's just going to fall over. We've been here since 2007. We've watched people come and go who, yeah, I just want to, I think my biggest point is do it properly, do it right, and always think for that longer game,
Right.
in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Julie?
Yeah, of course you can, Ken.
Chris, I just wondered, because it's so important in terms of the profile, do many of the clients use psychometric testing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Handwriting analysis, psychometric testing, all sorts of things have been used. Gut feel is so important, though. Don't ignore gut feel. And you've got to click. Well, in my opinion, the franchisor needs to click, or the franchisor team need to click with that,
Yeah,
and work with them for a long time. And yes, I think it helps you have a better understanding. But the real, you keep coming back to gut feel. We've got franchisors right now. We've got a franchisor who's recruited. He's relatively early in the journey, and he's got a couple of people that come in that his gut feel on them was a bit wavy, and he's not experienced, and he shouldn't have taken them on, and he's now having a few issues with them not fitting in. And it's yeah.
I've used them in the past with clients, and what we found was exactly what you've said. The chemistry is usually still one of the key elements, but the psychometric testing can support the views, or depending on how the prospect is marked, and occasionally the psychometric test can bring up something that's been missed. But the other quick one, I'd be interested in what you think, is I've worked with both. One that took about half an hour and everybody was losing the will to live at the end of it, and the Thomas test, which took 10 minutes, and the difference in terms of what those tests showed was negligible. And I just wondered if you had a view about, given the point about the chemistry and the profile, if you used the shorter ones.
Well, as I said, half jokingly, we had a client who used handwriting analysis at one point. I don't think it matters which one you're using. It's just giving that view. And some people have learned how to, the standard corporate ones, they've learned how to deal with them anyway, and what to say to be able to do the right interview. So I still think you've got to, the first interview is a first interview, first meeting is a first meeting. People know how to fudge that a bit. They're getting to know you, they relax. The second meeting, if you put all this together, it's really trying to get into who they really are. There's an argument, Ian talks about this, there's an argument for going and actually meeting them.
I was just about to say, Chris, I think you're absolutely right, Ken. The more touch points you have to be able to identify whether this is the right person as a franchise partner is really important. And one of the things I used to do is go around the country and go and spend a morning or afternoon with them in their home. Drink coffee, sit around the coffee table, and really get to know them as an individual. And that really guided, coming back to the gut feel, really guided me and helped me, assess that individual. And, if you walk into the house and it's a complete tip and the dog's trying to bite you and the TV's on, then, it's a no straight away. And that's happened to me on several occasions. So you're right, psychometric testing, go and see them, invite them into the head office, discovery days, asking other current franchise owners to speak to them and getting feedback from them. All of this adds up to your decision-making process.
Yeah, and again, just in terms of adding to psychometrics, again, from personal experience when you're using them, I think it's just part of the process and part of the profiling, and it's hopefully adding to what you already think you know. And psychometrics come into their own when something in the psychometric results is completely in conflict with what you think you've already seen. And another option is to use it on an ongoing basis as part of the kind of how to manage an individual tool as well, basically, because it does give indications in terms of, if you like, how people like to be managed as well. Thanks. And Louise Young, still got your hand up very patiently, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, thank you. Hi there, Chris. I was just going to ask, if you had to pick one, what would you see as the most common point of failure by franchisors in their recruitment process? Where do they most commonly get it wrong? Does it come down to process, marketing, budget, funding? What would you say?
It's the message. It's always the message. Always the message. They're doing all the channels, they're doing all the things, they've got loads of enthusiasm, up and down. Franchisors at the end of the day. I always, that's one of the things we come in and we always find is the message is usually the weakness. You need to get the story right. So that the prospect understands what they're going to be doing, because you're already then taking them on the journey. So when they actually come and start talking to you, they know what they're supposed to be doing. When they then go through the process and you recruit them, they know what they're supposed to be doing. So they know that at this point in the journey, I'll be around this sort of size and I should have this sort of lifestyle. At this stage in the journey, I probably can relax a bit more and I've got a management team, or I don't know, it depends on the franchise. And at this point of the journey, maybe I'm going to buy another territory. Extend into that. At this point in the journey, I'm going to exit, and I've got a whole process that I follow, and that starts them off being a franchisee before they even become a prospect, really, because they're already learning it and they're becoming a franchisee by their mindset and by their from the marketing. So we're very passionate about getting the message correct, and it's not it's an art, isn't it? You try things, you test them, and then over a period of time it gets better and better, in theory.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
I mean, that sorry to interrupt, but just on that same point, that requires a lot of patience, doesn't it, on the part of the franchisor?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of patience. And some people don't have that patience, particularly with their emerging brand. They just want to get in as many as they can as quickly as possible because they...
He's got a bit excited and mused himself.
Simon, you're on mute now.
You know, usually it's other factors that come into play. They're undercapitalized, so they have to sell franchises to keep their head above water. You know, their business plan and their cash flow forecast says they have to sell 10 franchisees. I mean, that's the reality of it, isn't it? And I guess patience I've seen is people need to be really patient with the process and be realistic also about the number of franchisees they're going to be able to recruit. However good the message is. I mean, it's a tough market.
There's a big piece around expectations, and people's expectations it's not just about the prospects' expectations, it's about the franchisor's expectations. Simon, you're completely right. And sometimes people come in, especially when they're new, and they're given expectations from the internet, from what they read, from speaking to people who are maybe making it sound better than it is because they want to make themselves feel like they've succeeded. The expectations can be set wrongly, and it takes time to get the right franchisees in. But if you get it wrong, it costs a hell of a lot more to undo it. Is Natalia around somewhere? I think she was. I don't know if she's got a...
she's still on the call. Yeah, she's on the video, but she's on the call.
Yeah, so I've worked with Natalia quite a bit, and she you know, if you get it wrong, the cost of getting it wrong is huge. You know, trying to undo it. It's actually better to do it slower and properly. Here she is. As you say, there's an excitement. I tried to cover that earlier in the call and mention all that, but it's really important to get the right people in. I know you're going to get one or two that are wrong over a big, building a network, but if you can try and get the majority of them right, you will have a much more valuable network in the future than you will have if you're going through this cycle of fighting as you go along as a franchisor, which is also draining on your energy as well as a franchisor, having seen that. And Natalia, did you want to add anything around that area? I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I didn't realise you were out and about. Nice to see you, though. I haven't seen you for a while. You're muted as well.
I think you got to look beyond the initial franchise fee as well, haven't you? Because you're recruiting not just for the franchise fee. You're recruiting for somebody who's going to drive your revenue over the lifetime of their franchise agreement. You know, management service fee. So is that an important part of the decision-making process as well, in terms of who's going to give you the right business plan that is going to deliver the management service fee or the royalty expectations over the lifetime of the agreement?
Yeah, you're right, Simon. And one of the first sort of questions I ask a prospect is, what's your exit strategy? And they look at me as if I'm completely mad because, you know, I haven't even acquired the franchise yet. Why are you asking me about when I'm going to leave? And excuse me, the answer that I want to hear is that I want to build an asset which I can sell and make a capital gain from.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got to have that sort of franchise prospect that's got that entrepreneurial spirit, who wants to build a business rather than buy a job.
Yeah, and Simon, one of the things that we do, and again, obviously, when we're working with clients in terms of the later stages of the development, they're going to be early stage franchisors. We'll put a very simple checklist together of 10, 12, 15 key points of things that people need to have before they meet the criteria to become a franchisee. And it's the usual skills, qualifications, experience, money, blah, 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 blah. And I'll get on calls with people who are in the journey, they're in the process, but they're early stage and they want to talk things through. And either by the time we get to the end of the conversation, after them telling me for 30 minutes about the individual, they've already come to the recognition and realization, because they've vocalized it, that they don't meet the profile. Or, my answer is always, and what does the checklist look like? So then, you go back, and if they only meet 5 of the 15, they're not going to meet the criteria. So just something very simple, because again, when people are in early stages and they're doing it themselves, it's their business, it's easy to get carried away and become too enthusiastic. But go back and look at the box, tick the boxes, and if they don't meet the criteria, they don't meet the criteria. So,
sorry. No, sorry. I was trying to unmute myself and somehow exited instead. So no, I want to say absolutely spot on everything. I suppose the only thing I would add, if anything, is to say I think it's important to repeat the process from time to time, because as the brand develops and the business develops, the type of individuals that you might be looking for that can also change. And I've certainly seen in my time that the franchisees who are joining today are not necessarily the same type of people who were joining 10 years ago. So it like with anything, you just need to keep up to date and keep repeating the process from time to time.
Yeah, and again, I think going back to one of the original slides that you shared with us, Chris, in terms of the franchise network as it was and the franchise network as it is, one of the big jump out points for me is the fact that the increase in MSF, the increase in valuation of the business to the franchisee, and the increase in MSF to the franchisor, because at the end of the day, we'd all like to have less franchisees making more money and generating more income for the franchisor than a lot of franchisees, of which substantial proportion are not making any money and they're not generating any MSF, but they're going to be a huge drain on resources to the franchisor.
And again, where the messaging makes a step change is where you're going to have a mature network and you're looking for a different type of franchise owner. Those people that can afford a £30,000 or £40,000 investment right at the very beginning are very different to the ones that will make a £200,000 or £300,000 investment. So again, the processes, the messaging, the way that you qualify those types of people will need reevaluating.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to open up to the floor in terms of anyone who'd like to ask a final question.
No, sorry. Use the opportunity one. Can I just throw something out there? And I'm really interested in your views on this, or answers, or guidance, however you want to put it. I think there's a general lack of empirical evidence out there in the franchise marketplace at the moment in terms of surveys and things like that. I know we've got independent small research projects going on, but as we are here and now, 2023, recessions and all this sort of stuff, if I'm a good emerging franchisor, I've got good validation, good franchisee unit economics, and I want to recruit 10 franchisees in a year. Work that back. What do I need to be shoveling in the funnel at the top end to achieve those 10 franchisees in the first in the 12 months?
We've got 4 minutes, Simon.
Oh, okay. No, it's just, I guess it's just numbers. I'm trying to get a feel for the numbers because I mean, you know, we're
It
still on a
totally
1 in
depends.
100.
What's the investment level? What's the type of audience they're going after? What are they expecting back in returns? There's so many variables to what then you should be investing or expecting to invest to get that return. What are the resources that are available to manage that in terms of, are you going to have to outsource some of it? It's a huge question.
Is the 1 in 100 still valid in this day?
I personally think you should be aiming for 1 in 70. I think if you go for better than 1 in 70, you're going to be missing channels and not exploring and not trying out new stuff. 1 in 70 is our sweet spot that we aim for. 1 in 100 is still absolutely perfectly valid, I agree. But it also depends on the type of audiences you're going after. If you're looking at investor absentee type model, where the person you're bringing in has already got like 5 gyms and 4 coffee shops and they're investing £1 million, it's a very different level of, number of people that are coming in to obviously the ones that you're actually going to convert. You in theory want to be bringing in people who've got the money, the quality level, it's different to if you're generating leads on Facebook for a part-time franchise helping children, in terms of it's just such a massive question. I'm really sorry, that's a rubbish answer for us to end on, but
no, it's very useful. It's very useful because you're at the sharp end, and as I said, I don't believe we've got that accurate information in the market anymore. And I think it's really useful when we speak to people like yourselves who do it day in, day out, and are very successful at doing it, to get a feel for that.
Yeah, I want to leave the thing that we wanted to leave you all with was it's not simple, it's not easy, and if you have to do it, in our opinion, to get results, you've got to do it properly and you've got to spend money. And therefore, if you look at it from a different way and you think about the valuation of your business now and the valuation of the business in the future, and actually try and map that out and what it would look like if you had these franchisees that were top performers, you got rid of the lower performers, as Julie was just saying, that drain the resource, and you end up building a network of those people, what is it then worth as a valuation? That to me is then suddenly puts everything into focus, and that then allows you to build the plans with a proper objective and structure behind them and financials to an excitement behind them to take you to that place. So it's a different approach maybe to what people do, whereas let's use LinkedIn, let's use whatever channel it is. That's not what we start with now. We start with, where are you going? How do we get that valuation up?
So there is a direct correlation between marketing spend and investment level then, isn't there?
I believe so, yeah. And we are unfortunately too expensive. We love working with everybody we can work with. We want to help people, but we are unfortunately, as a brand, as what we do with the people we've got employed, we can't help everybody. We can't. We can't be afforded to work with everybody, but we want to help people, so hence we're doing this.
Yeah, and thanks very much, Chris, again, in terms of your contribution. Just to finish up, obviously that's Chris's contact details and the team at Chantry, and absolutely really do appreciate you spending the time coming along today, and obviously the prep that you've gone through, it's really valuable. And the whole point of the exercise of what we do with First Friday is to share knowledge and experience around the industry and the sector as well. And it is genuinely, as Chris said, these events are not for selling, they're for sharing knowledge and showing what a fabulous sector franchising is, basically. And on that basis, the guest for the next session is someone that some of you will know and some of you will have known for a long period of time, and it's a guy called John Scott, who's now with Studio Pilates. We described him as a multi-brand franchisor, and literally goes back to the time that we spent in, with the Chantry Group in Darlington, setting up as one of the founding members of the British Franchise Association. And he went on to Fast Frame, and he spent a huge amount of time with Specsavers. And John's going to be with us on the 2nd of June. And I have to say, he's actually coming in. He's based in Australia now. So he's joining us at midnight Australian time to be our guest for the next First Friday session. And he assures me that he's going to have lots of good stories and anecdotal evidence to support, just his experience of successful franchising, basically. So thank you very much to everyone for joining. And really enjoyed the event, Chris and the team, and have a good bank holiday weekend, everyone. If you're watching I think there's something happening tomorrow that might be on the TV for a bit. So yeah, yeah. Have a good bank holiday weekend.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, thank